I'm presenting a multiple-choice question about Gaussian process regression, GPR, using a squared exponential kernel. We'll explore how the length scale parameter affects the model's predictions. Let's see if you can identify the correct statements. A larger length scale means the model considers points far apart as more similar. This results in smoother curves because the model averages out local variations. Think of it like drawing with a broader brush. You get smoother lines. With a smaller length scale, only nearby points strongly influence each other. This makes the model very responsive to every single data point, which can be good, or lead to overfitting. Imagine using a thin pen to draw. You can capture fine details. That's incorrect. The length scale doesn't directly control the overall spread, variance, of predictions. Other kernel parameters, along with any noise added to the model, determine that. Nope. While maximizing the log likelihood is a common approach, it's not guaranteed to find the absolute best length scale. Other methods exist, and the best depends on your priorities. We're using Gaussian process regression, GPR, a powerful tool for regression modeling. I am using the squared exponential kernel, a type of function that measures similarity between data points. It's a popular choice in GPR. This is a visual representation of Gaussian process regression using a squared exponential kernel. Imagine it as a graph showing how the model makes predictions. You would see the data points, the kernel function that shows the relationships between points, and the resulting predictions based on these relationships. I see a larger length scale as making the model's predictions smoother. Think of it like drawing a line through points. A large length scale means you draw a nice, gentle curve, even if the points are a bit scattered. A larger length scale implies that points farther apart are still considered highly correlated, leading to smoother predictions. With a smaller length scale, the predictions become much more sensitive to individual data points. Imagine drawing a line very close to each point, creating many small wiggles. The model will closely fit the training data, potentially leading to overfitting. A smaller length scale emphasizes the correlation between only nearby points. I interpret a smaller length scale as the model becoming very sensitive to even minor changes in individual data points. It's like the model is hyper-focused on each data point, potentially losing the larger picture of how the data behaves as a whole. It creates a model that's very wiggly, and might not generalize well to new, unseen data. This question explores how changing the length scale in a Gaussian process regression model affects the predictions. Think of it as how much you smooth or wiggle the curve you're fitting to the data. I'd say a larger length scale means we're considering points further away as similar, leading to a smoother prediction curve. It's like drawing a curve with a really soft pencil. You'll get fewer bumps and wiggles. A smaller length scale makes the model sensitive to individual data points, reacting to every little change in the data. It's like drawing a curve with a very sharp pencil, capturing every detail and creating a more wiggly curve. It might overfit, whoops. Finding the optimal length scale isn't always as simple as maximizing the log likelihood. It's more of a balance, finding the best fit without overcomplicating things. There are other ways to optimize this. We're looking at how much the model's length scale affects the balance between a smooth prediction, ignoring noise, and a highly sensitive, or detailed, prediction that might overfit the training data. It's like the Goldilocks problem. We want the length scale that is just right. Exclamation mark. This question asks you to think about how changing the length scale affects the predictions made by a Gaussian process regression, GPR, model using a squared exponential kernel. The length scale parameter controls how quickly the correlation between data points decays with distance. We'll examine each statement to determine if it accurately reflects this relationship. This is correct. A larger length scale means that data points further apart are still considered highly correlated. The model, therefore, smooths the prediction by assuming similar values across a wider range. Think of it like drawing a curve through data points. A larger length scale results in a smoother, less erratic curve. This statement is also correct. A smaller length scale implies that only nearby data points are strongly correlated. The model becomes more responsive to local variations in the data. It will fit the training data more closely. However, this increased sensitivity might lead to overfitting. This is incorrect. The length scale parameter affects the correlation structure between data points, not the overall variance of the Gaussian process. The variance is influenced by other aspects of the model, such as the noise parameter and the signal variance in the kernel. I find that this statement is false. While maximizing the log likelihood is a frequently used method for hyperparameter optimization, it doesn't guarantee finding the absolute best length scale. Other optimization methods may be more suitable, and the best length scale is often a trade-off between model fit and generalization. I'm exploring how the length_scale parameter, a crucial part of the squared exponential kernel in Gaussian process regression, GPR, influences the model's predictions. Think of length_scale as controlling how far apart two data points need to be before we consider them unrelated. A larger length_scale means I'm assuming data points far apart are still related. This results in a smoother prediction curve because the model prioritizes a general trend rather than fitting every small detail. Imagine drawing a line through scattered points. A larger length_scale would create a smoother, less wiggly line. With a smaller length_scale, I'm saying only nearby data points are strongly related. The model becomes very sensitive to individual data points, fitting the training data very closely. This can be good if the data is very accurate, but it also risks overfitting and poor generalization to new data. The line through my scattered points would be much more wiggly. Nope, the length_scale doesn't directly control the overall variance of the predictions. Other parts of the kernel and the model's noise parameter handle the variance. The length_scale manages how much data points influence each other, not how spread out the predictions are. While maximizing the log likelihood is a popular method, it's not guaranteed to give the absolute best length_scale. The best length_scale depends on what I want to achieve with the model. It's about balancing how well the model fits the data with how well it generalizes to new, unseen data. I might need to prioritize other factors. I'll explain how the length_scale parameter in a Gaussian process regression model, using a squared exponential kernel, affects the predictions. It's a crucial parameter that governs the smoothness of the model's predictions. A larger length_scale means the model considers points farther apart as more similar, resulting in smoother predictions. Conversely, a smaller length_scale leads to a model that pays more attention to the individual data points and creates a less smooth prediction. Think of it like drawing a line through points. A large length_scale is like using a broad, smooth brush, while a small length_scale is more like using a sharp pencil. I'm going to show you why this is false. The length_scale parameter doesn't directly control the overall variance of the Gaussian process. Instead, it controls how strongly data points influence each other based on their distance. The overall variance is affected by other factors such as noise levels in the data and parameters within the kernel itself. Think of it as the length_scale setting the reach of each data point's influence, not the overall volume. This statement is also incorrect. While maximizing the log likelihood is a common way to find good hyperparameters in GPR, it doesn't guarantee that you will always find the absolute best length_scale. The optimal length_scale depends on what you're trying to achieve. Sometimes, a slightly less optimal length_scale, in terms of log likelihood, might provide better generalization to new, unseen data, leading to better predictions in practice. Think of it as finding the best balance. Sometimes perfect fit to existing data isn't the most important thing. A larger length scale makes your predictions smoother because the model assumes nearby points are highly correlated. This is true, it leads to smoother predictions because points far apart are considered similar. A smaller length scale means the model is more sensitive to individual data points because only close points are strongly correlated. This statement is correct. You get a less smooth prediction because the model reacts more to the specifics of each data point. I see that the length scale parameter controls how far apart two data points need to be before they are considered uncorrelated. A smaller length scale means the model will only consider nearby points when making predictions. A larger length scale will consider points further apart. This directly influences the model's smoothness and sensitivity to individual data points. Think of it like this. a small length scale is like having a magnifying glass. You see the fine details. A large length scale is like stepping back and seeing the big picture. Cool, huh? Let's move on. Let's talk about how this length scale impacts the predictions your model makes. A large length scale gives you smoother predictions, because the model assumes similar values over longer distances. On the other hand, a small length scale makes the model very sensitive to each individual data point. This can lead to very detailed, maybe even wiggly, predictions that exactly match the training data. This might seem great, but could lead to problems when you use it on new, unseen data. We want a good balance between these two. Let's see how we can achieve that balance. This question is all about testing your understanding of the impact of the length scale parameter on Gaussian process regression model predictions. You'll need to know how the length scale affects the smoothness of the predictions, and how sensitive the model is to individual data points. GPR is a powerful tool for modeling data, and understanding this parameter is key. Let's dive in. This question is straightforward. You're asked to consider the influence of the length scale parameter, a crucial aspect of Gaussian process regression using a squared exponential kernel. Understanding this parameter is key to building effective GPR models. Let's tackle this question now. This is a multiple-choice question testing your knowledge of the effects of a length scale parameter on GPR model predictions. You need to consider how a large length scale relates to smoothness and how a small length scale relates to sensitivity to individual data points. You also need to understand if a length scale influences the overall variance of the Gaussian process or whether maximizing log likelihood always finds the optimal length scale. This isn't as daunting as it might seem. Let's analyze the options one by one. This describes the core method used in this problem, Gaussian process regression. The term, squared exponential kernel, specifies the type of kernel function that determines how the model handles relationships between data points. This choice has implications for how well the model can generalize to new data.